All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're going to be talking ETH and BTC. You know, you guys have sent in a lot of really interesting articles, market analyses, and we're going to try to understand just where Ethereum sits right now. You know, what's going on with its price? How's it doing against Bitcoin? How's it doing against the dollar? We'll be looking at on-chain data, all that kind of good stuff. Cool. So we know you guys want to get this information quickly and efficiently, so let's just jump right into it.
Sounds good. You know, when I look at everything you sent, it seems like there's this divergence, you know.
Okay.
When you look at ETH against Bitcoin, the signals are definitely pointing towards weakness.
Yeah.
But then when you look at ETH against the US dollar, it gets a little more interesting.
Okay.
So, yeah. It really makes you think about all these different market forces that are at play.
Okay, so let's start with that ETH-BTC pairing first. And, you know, looking at the long-term charts, it looks like ETH has had a pretty rough time. You know, we're talking about a multi-year downtrend. Yeah. And we're talking June 2017 all the way to now. And the decline has been pretty significant, over 85% against Bitcoin. So that's a pretty substantial change in relative value.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if we zoom in a little bit closer, you know, to a more recent time frame, I think that drop we saw on March 13th this year is really significant. You know,
right.
Ethereum hit a multi-year low against Bitcoin, down at 0.022 BTC. I mean, that's the lowest it's been since May 2020.
Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of alarming to hear analysts, one analyst in particular, Alessandro Ottaviani, using the term falling knife to describe this. Yeah. So for those who haven't heard that before, what exactly does that mean? Like, why is that such a bad thing?
Well, I mean, think about it literally, right? Yeah. Like, imagine trying to grab a falling knife, you know, and that's basically it. It describes an asset that's just rapidly plummeting in price.
Right.
And the risk there, the danger, is that if you jump in to buy it, thinking you're getting a great deal because it's down so low.
You think you're catching the bottom?
Yeah, you think it's a steal, but it just keeps falling.
Yeah.
And then you lose even more money. And in this specific case, when it comes to ETH against Bitcoin, it seems like that buying interest just hasn't been strong enough to counter that downward momentum.
Right, right.
So that's why it's a falling knife.
So let's talk about some of those technical indicators, the relative strength index, the RSI. For ETH-BTC, you know, that's been giving some pretty extreme readings, right?
Yeah, it has. So the 2-week RSI actually went down to 23.32, which was a record low.
Wow.
And, you know, generally when an RSI dips below 30, you know, it suggests that the asset is oversold.
Yeah.
And it might be due for, you know, a little bit of bounce. But what's kind of crazy here is that ETH-BTC has been in this oversold territory for 2 months.
Wow.
2 months. And no sign of a reversal.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And that really suggests that the pressure downward, it might be gaining strength, actually.
So 2 months in oversold territory with no bounce, that's not a good sign. And some of the analysts are pointing towards even further declines.
Yeah. The outlook, you know, from a technical perspective, it says we could see ETH-BTC falling to a range of 0.020 to 0.016 BTC.
Right.
So just to give you an idea of how big of a drop that is, you know, the lower end of that range is about 30% below where ETH was trading against BTC on March 13th.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know, if you believe this analysis, there's still a lot of room for it to fall further.
So if we're looking for, you know, some kind of shift, like what are the things that we should be watching for?
Right. So if we're hoping for a turnaround, there are a couple of things.
Okay.
First, we need to see that RSI stabilize, you know, and then start to climb, you know, because that would show that the selling pressure, that intense selling, is easing up, and maybe buyers are starting to come back in. Okay. And then, you know, a rebound from that 0.022 BTC support level would be huge.
Yeah.
You know, that level has held in the past.
Right.
And then, you know, after that, we need to see Ethereum break through and hold above some key resistance levels. And then, you know, that would really tell us that, okay, maybe the trend is reversing.
Right.
But without those things happening, that RSI improvement and that price action, you know, it seems like that falling knife thing, it might just keep going.
So if we do see a rebound, what are people talking about in terms of upside targets?
Well, the analysis mentions a possible rally to 0.038 BTC.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting because that aligns with the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement line.
Right.
And also the 50-week exponential moving average.
Right.
You know, so these are levels that technical analysts, they watch these, and the Fibonacci retracement helps to identify potential areas of support or resistance,
Yeah.
Based on those past price movements.
Okay.
And the moving average, well, you kind of smooths out that price data, and shows you the overall trend.
Right.
So if ETH can reach those levels, that might be a sign that it's a more sustained recovery.
Okay.
So that 0.038, that's definitely one to, keep your eye on.
Okay, so we got a pretty clear picture of weakness against Bitcoin driven by those technical signals. But, let's try to figure out why. Why is this happening? What are some of the reasons behind this ETH BTC struggle?
Well, there are a few things going on. First of all, you've got the competition.
Yeah.
Other layer one blockchains are really stepping up their game.
Okay.
Especially Solana, actually.
Okay.
There's some data from VanEck, and it shows that Solana's DX volume, decentralized exchange.
Okay.
So the volume on Solana's DX has actually surpassed Ethereum's, which is, it's kind of a big deal because it signals maybe, a change in preference.
Okay.
Among developers, among users.
Interesting.
So, Solana's known for faster transactions, cheaper transactions.
Right.
And, this is going to be a sign that it's really starting to eat into Ethereum's network effect.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Ethereum is still the king when it comes to DeFi overall.
Yeah.
But this shift in DX volume, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay, so more competition, more viable alternatives.
Yeah.
What else is playing a role here?
Well, the spot Bitcoin ETFs that launched last year in 2024, those have been huge.
Right.
I mean, the inflows have been massive. We're talking $129 billion.
Wow.
And that's really messed with the, that classic altcoin season.
Yeah.
Because, typically after Bitcoin goes on a run, investors take some profits.
Yeah.
And then they put that money into ETH and other altcoins. But it seems like those Bitcoin ETFs, they soaked up so much of that liquidity.
Right. Yeah.
That it didn't really flow into the altcoin market like it normally would.
Yeah. So it's almost like Bitcoin's success is hurting the price performance of other cryptos?
In a way, yeah. You could say that.
Okay, and then there was also some mention of ETH-specific selling pressure.
Right. So remember that Bybit hack?
Yeah.
Well, there were reports that a lot of Ethereum was liquidated because of that.
Okay.
And some of that liquidated ETH, apparently it was moved through decentralized platforms like Thorchain.
Right.
And that kind of forced selling, that could still be having an effect.
Yeah.
Still putting pressure on Ethereum's price, relative to Bitcoin.
Okay, so we've got competition, we've got those Bitcoin ETFs, pulling money away, and then some bad news for ETH specifically. So it's kind of painting this bearish picture, right?
Yeah. For ETH BTC, definitely.
Yeah, but let's switch gears a little bit and look at Ethereum's price against the US dollar, because it seems like the story is a little different there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's actually more and more interesting because, even though that ETH BTC chart is looking pretty bad, there's some analysis from Glassnode, and they suggest that Ethereum might have actually found a price floor.
Okay.
Against the dollar, that is. And that floor is around $1,886.
Okay.
And they're basing this on their cost basis distribution heat map, which shows how much ETH is held by investors at different price points.
Okay.
We were talking about on-chain data earlier. Well, this is exactly what that means.
Right.
Looking at those transactions on the blockchain, we can see at what prices people bought their ETH.
Okay.
And right now, there's a lot of ETH that's held around that $1,886 price,
right,
which suggests there's strong support there.
Interesting.
Because so many people bought in at that level.
And that $886.60 price, that's not just a random number, is it?
Yeah.
It seems to line up with another one of Glassnode's indicators, right?
You got it. It matches up with their capitulation metric for ETH.
Okay.
And that metric looks at, patterns of investors selling at a loss.
Right.
And historically, when this metric spikes, it's often been a signal that a rally is coming.
Okay.
So the idea is that, once those weak hands have sold off their ETH,
yeah,
the price is more likely to go back up.
Okay.
And the fact that we're seeing this, support on the heat map and a potential signal from the capitulation metric, all around the same price, that's pretty significant.
Okay. And what about stablecoin supply? That's often seen as a measure of, how much money is just waiting to enter the market.
Yeah. That's another interesting piece of the puzzle. So Glassnode also reported that the total supply of stablecoins has gone up a lot this year.
Okay.
Since the beginning of 2025, it's increased by over $20 billion, bringing the total stablecoin supply to over $205 billion.
Wow.
And, a lot of people see this as a bullish sign.
Right.
Because it means there's all this capital just sitting there ready to be invested,
right.
Potentially into Ethereum.
Okay.
And just for reference, when that daily HODL article came out, ETH was trading at about $8,890.
Okay.
So right around that potential floor.
So it's kind of like, yeah, ETH might be struggling against Bitcoin, but those on-chain data that stablecoin supply, it suggests that maybe it's finding some stability against the dollar.
Right, exactly.
And maybe that could set the stage for a recovery.
Yeah, potentially.
All right, so now let's look at some of the other potentially bullish signals for ETH's price in US dollars. What else are these reports talking about?
Well, there's this interesting signal that came from sentiment data. The analyst, Ali Martinez, he pointed this out.
Okay.
He noticed that these large Ethereum holders, the whales, they were buying a lot of ETH.
Okay.
Over 420,000 ETH in just 5 days. And historically, when you see these whales accumulating a lot of ETH at lower prices, that's been a pretty good sign.
Okay.
It suggests that, these big players, they're feeling confident about Ethereum's future.
Right.
They think the price is going to go up.
Okay, so that's a strong vote of confidence from people with a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, beyond just, market sentiment and whale activity, what about the technology itself?
Yeah, so the technological advancements within the Ethereum ecosystem,
right,
those are definitely a big reason to be optimistic.
Okay.
We already saw the Denkin upgrade that included the EIP 4844 Proto-Dank sharding, which is designed to, make Ethereum more scalable, reduce those transaction costs.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Exactly. Especially for those layer 2 scaling solutions,
Yeah.
And then looking ahead, we've got the Petra upgrade coming up.
Okay.
And that's combining the Prague and Electra upgrades.
Okay.
And it's all about, making Ethereum even better, more scalable, more efficient.
So those upgrades are really important for the long-term, success of Ethereum.
Totally essential.
Okay. And what about the regulatory landscape? Specifically in the U.S., we've got those spot Ethereum ETFs that have been approved.
Right.
So how big of a deal is that for Ethereum's price?
Well, I think it's a pretty big deal.
Okay.
Because now you've got these ETFs, like the Fidelity Ethereum Fund, SETH, and the Bitwise Ethereum ETF, ETHW.
Right.
And that gives institutional investors a really easy way to get into Ethereum before, it was more complicated for them.
Yeah.
So this could lead to a lot of new money flowing into Ethereum.
Right.
And that's always a good thing for the price.
Absolutely. Easier access for institutions usually means, higher prices.
Yeah, that's the general idea.
Okay. And then, we can't forget about, the fact that Ethereum is still the foundation for DeFi and NFTs.
Absolutely. Ethereum is the main platform for decentralized finance applications for NFTs.
Right.
And as those sectors grow and innovate, that's going to drive demand for ETH.
Right, because you need ETH to, pay for transactions, to participate in the network.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've got these bearish signals against Bitcoin, but some potentially bullish signs when we look at ETH against the dollar. And this brings us to, one of the most interesting parts of any crypto discussion.
Price predictions.
Yeah, price predictions. And it seems like there's a pretty wide range of opinions out there for Ethereum's price in 2025.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, the predictions are all over the place.
Okay.
Which I guess shows you just how unpredictable this market can be.
Right.
So, on the optimistic side, you've got Changelly predicting a minimum price of over $7,300.
Okay.
And CoinCodex, they think it could go even higher, maybe above $28,700.
Wow.
And then there's Finder. They did a survey of experts, and the average prediction there was almost $18,000. And then, even some of the more moderate views, like Andy Lean, he sees ETH somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000.
Okay.
And BJ Pravin Maharajan, he also says $8,000.
Okay. But then we also have those, more cautious, more pessimistic views as well.
Right. So Light Finance, they're a little more conservative. They think ETH could go as high as, somewhere between $7,200 and $8,200.
Okay.
But they also say it could drop to $4,000 if the market takes a turn for the worse.
Right.
And Cryptopolitan, their average prediction is around $5,600.
Okay.
And then, well, you've got the really bearish ones, like the VP of blockchain at Yuga Labs.
Yeah.
He thinks it's possible that ETH could plummet all the way down to $200.
Wow. So from $28,000 down to $200, that's a huge range of possibilities.
Yeah, it really shows you the risks that are involved.
So what are the things that are going to, determine whether ETH goes up or down? What are those key factors?
Well, there are several things to watch out for. First, those upgrades, those technical upgrades that we talked about,
right,
like the Petra upgrade, it's really important that those go smoothly.
Okay.
If there are any delays, any problems, that could make investors nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the adoption rate of, DeFi, NFTs,
right,
the more people that use those applications, the higher the demand for ETH.
Right, right.
And, of course, regulations.
Yeah.
What governments around the world decide to do with crypto, that's going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, and then there's the overall, economic conditions.
Right, the macro environment.
Yeah.
If the global economy is doing well, that's good for crypto.
Right.
But if there's a recession, a lot of uncertainty, that could hurt the market.
Okay, so those are all, big picture, long-term things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But just focusing on the short term now, what's the technical outlook looking like for ETH against the dollar?
So as of mid-March 2025, Ethereum was trading around $1,899.
Okay.
And it's been kind of struggling to break above and stay above $2,000.
Okay.
Which is a key resistance level.
Oh.
So for ETH to really start moving up, it needs to get above $2,000.
Right.
And then break through the next resistance level, which is around $2,250.
Okay.
If it can't do that, it might drop back down.
Right.
Maybe to $1,700, maybe even $1,600.
Okay.
But, there are also some estimates out there that they're a bit more optimistic.
Okay.
They say that ETH might just trade in a narrow range.
Okay.
Between about $894 and $189 for the next month or so.
Okay, so a lot of different possibilities.
Yeah, that's the crypto market for you.
So let's try to wrap this up, Let's sum up what we've learned about Ethereum today.
Okay, so big picture, it's complicated.
Yeah.
ETH is definitely facing some headwinds against Bitcoin.
Right.
You've got that competition from Solana, the Bitcoin ETFs pulling away liquidity, and those ETH-specific selling pressures that we talked about.
Right.
And the technical indicators, they're not looking good.
Yeah.
But then when you look at ETH against the dollar, you see those on-chain signals, that stablecoin supply, the whales accumulating ETH.
Yeah.
So there's potential for a recovery there.
Okay.
But, those price predictions, they vary wildly.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to those upgrades going smoothly,
right,
adoption of DeFi and NFTs continuing to grow,
right,
and, of course, the whole regulatory situation and the overall economy.
So lots of different factors at play.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted situation.
Right, and it's really important to look at it from all those different angles, which is what we've tried to do today.
Exactly.
So I want to leave you, the listener, with something to think about, We've got those bearish trends against Bitcoin, but we also have that potential support forming against the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't forget about those whales. They're buying up a lot of ETH. So what do you think is going to happen? What's going to be the defining factor for Ethereum's price in the next few months? Will it be those technical upgrades? Will it be the adoption of DeFi and NFTs? Will it be something else entirely? And then, thinking even bigger, how does Ethereum need to evolve,
Yeah.
to stay competitive, to stay relevant in this ever-changing crypto landscape?
Good question.
Yeah, these are definitely things to, to ponder, to research as you, continue to explore these markets. So thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
See ya.
And we'll catch you next time.